Theresa Reed, the tarot lady, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Kate. I'm so excited. I love to talk anything about tarot. So thank you.
So stoked. I don't know enough about tarot. So would you mind sharing a quick history on how tarot was once to my knowledge, it was like an Italian card game, but now it's more of like a spiritual guidance tool. So could you help me out?
Well, first of all, tarot was originally created as a game in Italy around the 1400s. And it was something that only like the upper classes had access to. And, once the printing presses were invented, well, average Joes like us were able to get our hands on them. And they were, again, still played as a game. And it wasn't until the 1700s when Jean-Baptiste Alliette wrote the first book connecting tarot with divination that it became even known for divination. So it was always a card game, a trick-taking game, I think they call it. And it's still played as a card game in many parts of the world. So there are many people who play the game of tarot. However, we now associate it with divination. And I also have to say that after Alliette wrote that book, the tarot got more popular when the Rider-Waite-Smith deck was created. When that deck was created in the early 1900s, I think tarot then really became super popular, but in divination circles. Again, it moved away from the original intention, which was to play games.
So interesting. So how did tarot enter your life, and when did you start using it as a daily practice?
Well, tarot entered my life when I was a teenager. And, most people who know me that, I originally got into astrology before I got into tarot.
Mhm.
I had the good fortune when I was in high school of having a friend whose mother was an astrologer. And she did my chart. I got totally hooked. I'm like, wow, there's something to this. And, one day when we were at the mall, that's when I had it right over to the bookstore, and I saw a tarot deck, and I picked it up on just like totally on a whim, took it home, and was super, super into it. I'm visual. I love the visual images. I love the stories. I wanted to know, how does this work? And I was determined to learn it. So it came into my life very young. So I've been reading tarot now. I've had a tarot deck in my hands for over 40 years. Long time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So would you say that tarot is like your vocation, or how would you define what tarot means to you?
Tarot is my vocation. I mean, we could say that. It's my passion. I mean, in 40 years, I've never gotten sick of reading anything about tarot or looking at the images. So it's my passion. It's my vocation. I like to say it's in my blood. It's my thing, so that's how I would probably sum it up. It's more than a vocation.
Right. So how does tarot work? Like, I don't understand how it works. I know I have a couple of decks, but not because I know what to do with them, just because the art is beautiful. So I'm like, cool. I just like look at them and I'm like, back in the box. So would you mind helping me understand how it works? And is it so much memorization versus intuition, or?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, first of all, when you looked at those cards, you love the art, right?
Hmm?
And the thing with tarot, I mean, each card is, filled with art. It's filled with symbols. It's filled with archetypes. And the way tarot works is we look at the art, we look at the images, we look at the archetypes and the symbols and how the cards are going together to tell a story like a picture book. And then we look at that and start feeling out, well, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to the question? There are certain rules with tarot, but intuition is always going to trump things. So for example, one of the standard cards is for the Five of Swords is the card of deception. But that card can mean many other things depending on what your instincts are picking up on. So I like to say you want to always learn all the basics, and those will be a jumping off point. Kind of like when you build a house, it's a foundation, but your intuition is the decoration that makes it beautiful.
That's really cool. So what is a standard tarot reading like with you?
Well, I don't read for the public anymore, but back when I would read with the public, people would come in. We'd start by pulling an oracle card first. And the reason why we pull the oracle card is because a lot of times when people are, coming in for a reading, they're coming in from work, they're frazzled, they just came in traffic. And so we want to take a moment to get them centered and to right away get them to see that, look, this is a spiritual place. We have to quiet our mind. We have to be present. You can't be somewhere else thinking about the traffic jam that you just came in from or whatever you came in from. So I always start off with that. And then what I do is I shuffle the cards, and then I give it to the other person and they shuffle the cards.
Mm.
And once they feel like they're done shuffling, they hand me the cards and I cut them into 3 piles. I put them back with my left hand, always with the left hand. That's a superstition. And then what I do is I begin by doing what I call a general outlook. And the general outlook, I don't ask any questions. I just want to see what I see.
Mhm.
And so I want to see what I'm picking up on for the querent. Once we do that, then I'll take a quick look at their astrology chart just to see if there's a major aspect going on. And from there, they can ask questions. That way, we're focusing on what's important to them, not just what I'm seeing.
Mhm.
And once we're done with the questions, I do a wrap up, and the wrap up always pulls everything together. And it makes sure that we type any loose ends and cover any areas that we may not have asked about. So that's generally what I do when I work with clients or when I used to work with clients.
Mhm. So I'm just like, there's so much to it. You wouldn't really think that there were so many like layers to it. So it's my understanding that there are different layouts as well.
Yes.
Um, I don't understand how they work. Would you mind helping me understand what they're used for?
Sure. I mean, the layouts really, they give a structure. They give a structure for interpretation. So, for example, if you do something like the past, present, future spread, well, now we have a little structure. So you lay out the 3 cards. This one is the past. This one is the present. This one is the future. And again, it's like a picture book. And because there is a structure there, it helps to interpret the card. So, for example, let's say the 6 of Cups is in the past. Well, that may say, well, the past is the past. You had a lot of pleasant memories. If it's in the present, it could symbolize, okay, someone from the past is coming back into the picture, and you might be connecting with them now. If it's in the future, it might mean that maybe you're going to be creating new memories with old friends. So those positions give it a structure. And that again helps with the interpretation, because the interpretation for cards will change depending on what position they're in a spread.
Mhm. So what is the point of card showing up in reverse?
Oh, reversals. If you want to hear a bunch of tarot people argue, you ask them about reversals. Some people do not work with reversals at all. They want nothing to
Mhm.
do with them. And by the way, you can still get a really good reading without reversals. But many people like myself, I always like to say I'm an old school reader.
Mhm.
I find reversals add subtle nuances to the reading. If you have a bunch of reversals, it could be talking about a time of introspection.
Mm.
Reversals can change the meaning of a card. It can turn things around. It can talk about things you have not yet learned or absorbed. So
Mm.
I think it adds a lot to the reading. But some people, they don't like them, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, if it doesn't work for you, leave it be. But I think it actually offers a lot to the reading.
Yeah, I mean, like I watch you, I watch you on Instagram, and Cynthia and I both, and I'm a Capricorn, so I think Cynthia's a little jealous because of Benny. So
Benny is always nearby. Benny is a Capricorn. He is a true Capricorn.
I feel like I am too, because you're always spot on and it's always freaky. And I've never really like followed someone doing tarot, or I've never been an avid horoscope reader. Like I check in here and
Mhm.
there because it's fun, but I consistently watch you and Cynthia and
Oh,
we
thank
go back.
you.
Yeah, we go back and forth. She's a Gemini and,
Yes.
sometimes I might miss it. So I'm so glad that I can watch it anytime. It's the best.
Thank you. And I love doing that little forecast in the morning because I feel it's a great way to help people to be present
Yeah.
and to not feel so afraid in this crazy world we're living in.
Yeah.
I remember when I started doing it, I got kind of forced to do it because my publisher wanted me to promote my latest book.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I was going to do 10 episodes and that was it. And people were like, wow, this is great. Can you keep doing it? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And it's really been, again, a way to help people to not be so freaked out about what's happening in the cosmos or in the world. And the last couple of years have been so intense politically, and people have been really feeling scared about the state of the world. So just knowing that there's some energy you can work with, I
Mhm.
think helps people to feel a sense of peace no
Mhm.
matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always feel great after. I'm like, even if it's not the best reading, like today's, I was kind of like, who is it? I kept looking around my office. I'm like, who's the bad guy? But
Yeah, set those boundaries.
I know. So, how do different decks impact your reading?
That's a great question. The different decks, first of all, every artist is going to have their own interpretation.
Mm,
You know, they might put something in there that another artist never thought of or whatever. They might have maybe a different idea themselves about what that card means for them.
mm,
So the artist's interpretation could be very radically different from one deck to the next.
mm,
And what that does then for a tarot reader, excuse me, is
mm,
suddenly when we have these different decks, we also develop maybe a different way of looking at them.
mm,
So, like, for example, you know, like if you look at the King of Swords in the Tarot for Kids deck,
mm,
this guy is looking straight ahead. He's got his hand up. He looks like he's got something to say. Whereas in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, it's facing a different way. That's going to give you a different interpretation. He's got no expression on his face. You know, you're just going to get different things based on the colors, the images, and whatnot. So
mm,
I think that it may lend to, again, different interpretations.
mm. That's so interesting. So, you use a lot of your intuition, right?
Mhm.
When you're doing, okay. So, how does that play a role? And when you use your intuition, are you someone who also, are you sensitive in other areas or
I'm super sensitive, super, super sensitive. You know, when I was a
please
little,
dish?
yes, when I was a little girl, I was called a crybaby
Uh,
because I'm super sensitive. I got in trouble all the time for having a really vicious temper. So
mm,
I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very intense person emotionally. Um, what else? And I was fortunate. I grew up actually in a household where my mother and grandmother were both psychic. So none
mm,
of that stuff was seen as like a negative.
right.
And so anytime you're having like dreams or feelings about things, in our household, that was natural. But
Mm,
my sensitivity was something they didn't like. I'm very empathic. I can feel what's going on with other people. That's not always a fun place, by the way. People who think being empathic is good or even being psychic is good, I'm like, it's not what you think it is. It's oftentimes really uncomfortable.
mm,
You know, so I grew up always knowing that I was super sensitive. I grew up knowing I was different from other kids because I had a very psychic household. So I always felt kind of like a little bit of an alien in my
mm,
family, but also in the world in general.
yeah.
Being sensitive, you know, with intuition, when you're doing a reading for someone, when there's a lot of different components that go into it. When you're sensitive, you're probably going to be a more compassionate reader, first of all,
Mm,
because you can really feel out what's going on with the other person.
mm,
When you have empathic abilities, you can also sense when people aren't being completely open in the reading. And you can sense, like, okay, what is this person hiding? How can I bring that out in them so we can really have a good, honest reading?
mm,
And intuition also helps you to see, again, how the cards go together, but how they go together for this specific person.
mm,
So, for example, let's say you and I both had the exact same cards in the exact same position, but you have something else going on in your life that's completely radically different from me. A good reader is going to be able to look at those cards and not give you both the same reading because you are different people with different emotional things going on and you're focused on different situations. So,
mm.
you have to be a little bit intuitive to feel those things out.
Right. That makes total sense because like, aren't you dealing with the energy that they put into the card?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And you're also dealing with people's energies too.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're doing readings with somebody in person or over the phone, which was always, by the way, my preferred method was always over the phone because there's
Wow.
no distractions.
Yeah.
There's no distractions. I can focus on the work, the cards, and what I'm feeling. And I have nobody sitting there showing up drunk or anything like that.
Mm,
So it always gave a better reading for me because I was comfortable. And intuition then just got to do its thing and do its work. But you really do pick up on people's energy. And that tells a lot for the reading. And by the way, when people send emails, what they don't realize,
mhm.
for those of us who are energetically sensitive, we can also feel out exactly what's going on when you sent that email too.
Wow. That's interesting. I never even thought of that before.
Well, it's
Huh.
energy. Everything's
Oh,
energy.
yeah.
And think about it. You're like typing away. You've got energy in your fingers. You're feeling a
Mhm.
certain thing. You're tapping onto something that's made out of energy. It's going through the air, through these energetic channels. I mean, emails actually, people reveal a lot in their emails, even if they don't say anything.
Per my last email.
Mm.
So would you say that the ability to read tarot is a gift, or could anyone learn the practice?
I think anyone can learn the practice. Anyone can learn. It just takes time and patience. However, some people are going to be more proficient at it than others. So like for example, I could learn to play guitar. I
Mm,
don't have natural rhythm, so it's not going to sound the same as someone who has natural rhythm.
mhm.
But I might still, with good practice, get pretty good at it. But when you see certain people, they just have a rhythm for it.
Yeah.
So some people, I wouldn't say again, it's a gift. I think it's a talent, it's a skill. It's a
Mhm.
skill you can develop, but some people are just more, they just got that groove.
Hmm. So I don't even know if I would have the groove or not.
You might.
I might be because I'm charismatic. I can make a groove. I don't know.
Well, and Capricorns are diligent. When they put their mind to something, they're determined to learn it.
Yes. I do get that way. I have like a hard time quitting. So where in the spectrum of tarot mixed with religion do you place your own belief system?
Well, I grew up in an extremely religious household, super
Mhm.
Catholic. My parents were really into religion. We went to church all the time. I even taught CCD for a while, so,
Mhm.
which by the way, is Catholic education for people who don't know.
Mhm.
So, I grew up in a very, very religious household, but I've never been a religious person.
Mhm.
I've always been more of a spiritual person. I believe there is something greater out there, but I never really did too well with the rules of the church. I
Yeah.
don't like rules. I'm a free spirit. I
Mhm.
don't like that. And so I've never been able to really fully commit to one religion.
Mhm.
And I always say I'm nice to all the gods just in case, but I don't have like a real strong commitment to any of that. I'm really committed to making my best life happen whatever way I can.
Mhm.
And organized religion just doesn't work for me. It works for some people, but not me.
I'm right with you. I tried. My parents are so religious, and my mom was a Sunday school teacher, and my dad was like a
Mhm.
deacon. Like, you know, um it- my grandfather used to read the Bible at dinner. It was like intense.
Yeah.
And I always got in trouble because I never memorized the verses because I was like, I don't want to. Like I just never felt the
Yeah.
connection.
It just wasn't for me. And that's again not a slag on them.
Yeah.
Listen, if it works for you, by all means, do it. I went to a Zen temple for a while too. I'm like, I'm going to learn Zen Buddhism, which I love the
Yeah.
whole philosophy of Zen Buddhism. If I had to say any type of philosophy that's closest to mine would probably be Zen philosophy, yoga philosophy.
Mhm.
But I went a couple times like, I don't have the discipline for this either. I don't want to sit for an hour staring at a wall. No, I'm
Yeah.
done with this. So I was over it. It's not for
Yeah.
me. I can't commit to something like that.
Yeah. I'm right with you. So do you consider tarot to be a form of magic?
Everything's a form of magic.
Yeah.
Everything is magic to me. Our words are magic. Our thoughts are magic. Our actions that we take are magic. Tarot also helps you to tap into the present moment
Mm.
and to really see where you can go and what's possible. So it's absolutely very magical. But, the magic isn't with the cards, it's with you. And we are all magical beings. We just sometimes forget that.
I'm going to take that snippet and play it like every day for the rest of my life. That was a beautiful answer.
Oh, thank you.
It
Well,
was,
and I
it was
mean it too,
beautiful.
because we
Yeah.
are magical beings. I got to tell you something about magic. I studied magic for many years, which I don't always talk about because sometimes people think, how weird.
Mm.
But when I started doing yoga, and I've been doing yoga for a long time, I teach yoga too, although
Mm.
my studio's closed thanks to COVID.
Mm.
But I remember when I was doing yoga in the beginning, I came out of my first yoga class. I'm like, wow, I feel really good. I didn't realize I had issues until I took yoga.
Mm.
And after I started doing yoga really consistently, I discovered I didn't have to really do magic much anymore because I became magic.
Mm.
My life became magical by doing yoga. And that's the one commitment, by the way, other than tarot that I've stuck with. And because yoga makes you feel good physically, but it tricks you into meditation. And when
Mhm.
you meditate, you make friends with yourself. And when
Mhm.
you make friends with yourself and accept yourself, that's when the real magic in your life happens. I firmly believe that.
Yeah. Y- I know you write books, but you should just write books. I mean, you were just so eloquent. I'm in
Oh,
love.
thank you.
I'm pregnant. It's yours. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're pregnant? Oh,
I just said I'm pregnant. It's yours.
You got me excited there for a minute.
So when when and why should a person try a tarot reading?
I think tarot is really a great thing to do when you're trying to get some answers about a situation.
Mhm.
If you're trying to maybe understand yourself, where you're going, your motives, if you're trying to see if a situation is going to make sense for you, or if you're second guessing yourself or decisions you're making, tarot can be a wonderful, wonderful friend on your journey. You shouldn't be getting a tarot reading when you are bent out of shape over something,
Mhm.
because you're not going to hear one thing that that tarot reader said. You will only hear the worst case scenario or exactly what you want to hear.
Mhm.
I don't think you should do readings when you're impaired, especially if you're drunk. There's nothing worse than doing a reading for someone who's drunk out of their mind.
Mhm.
They don't listen, they don't hear. So those are the times I think you shouldn't do a reading.
Mhm.
But if you are looking for guidance, if you are trying to figure out, hey, where am I going? Is this going to work out? What does the forecast look like? If you're nosy, you're curious, that's great. Other things, tarot is never a substitute for medical advice, legal advice, psychiatric counseling. It's never, ever a substitute. And it's not something to spy on other people. You know, sometimes people want to come to tarot and they want to ask, so is my ex thinking about me? Tarot's not a mind reading tool.
Yeah.
And why are you asking about your ex? That's the dumbest waste of your time. Let's focus on your life right now and what you're doing to move beyond this jerk. You know, that's a
Yeah,
better use of your reading.
absolutely. So this just popped into my head. You know, those little like online tarot things, are those fake?
You mean the apps?
Yeah. And like if you can like click on cards and then they pull up your reading, like is that fake?
That's just another way to get the information. And I listen, I used to kind of question those too. I thought, apps, come on now.
Yeah.
However, what changed my mind is I talked to a reader once who was did not have the use of his hands. He's
Mhm.
quadriplegic. And so he couldn't shuffle. And he was into these apps because now he could access tarot. He could do readings. He could work with tarot because now he had a way to access it. And that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, wow, you're right. I never thought about that.
Hmm.
Tarot apps can work for people who can't shuffle. You've got tarot information on the go. If
Mhm.
you are a student of tarot, now you've got a little tarot reading right in your pocket. And
Hmm.
remember what I said about energy is energy and how
Mhm.
your emails send a vibe? Well, listen,
Yeah.
you're still pushing there. There's still energy there. You're still feeling something.
Yeah.
However, you don't want to treat that like some slot machine and be hitting it, hitting it, hitting it, hitting it, hitting it.
Mhm.
Get your answer, be done, leave it be for a while. But
Mm.
I think it can work for people. I'm open-minded about that. I really am. And for again, for people who are unable to shuffle, the apps are revolutionary for them.
Mhm.
I think they're great.
Okay, cool. That's actually like it's nice to know because I've done it, but like I was always like, "Wah, I don't really know." You know, I didn't put
Yeah,
much
there's
weight
something
into it.
there.
Okay, cool.
Energy is energy, energy is energy. And again, it's revolutionizing things and it's making tarot more accessible for everybody. So
Right.
I'm all about that. So I again, I was skeptical too, but then
Yeah.
that dude changed my mind. Like, damn, you're right.
Hmm.
This dude is right. I never thought about that.
Pretty cool. So, say I've never had a reading before. How should I pose a question to a tarot
Mm,
reader?
the question is everything. Your reading is only as good as your question. If you come in and say, will I get married? Not a good question.
Mhm.
Instead, a better question is, what do I need to know about finding my right partner and forming a commitment? We never want to do will I or should I. Will I means you're thinking the future is just going to happen to you. Like somehow you're this passive being and things are just happening to you. And life doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
You know, I always say I'll use the will I get married as the example. When people ask the question, will I get married? And maybe the cards say yes. Sometimes then people go home and sit on the couch and they think it's going to show up like Prince Charming with a damn glass slipper on their door. And it's like, no, 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 no. It shows potential, but you still have to go out there and make some steps so you can meet somebody.
Mhm.
It doesn't work like the way some people think. You know, you don't just always bump into that tall, dark, handsome stranger if you're not making yourself available.
Right.
So a better thing instead of will I is always, what do I need to know about? What do I need to know about getting married?
Mhm.
Or how can I? How can I find my right partner? This way, we can look at the potential, but we can also look at the actionable steps that you can take so you can take control of your future instead of sitting around on your couch hoping that Mr. or Mrs. Right is going to show up at your damn door. I mean, I
Mhm.
always say the only time that ever happens is in fairy tales or porno movies. Doesn't happen in real life. Does not happen in real life.
Right. Well, they say you have to dress for the job that you want,
Yes.
right? So I feel like that should apply in your regular life. Like behave the way that you want.
Yes.
Like you give out what you
Yeah, and
want.
also, when you can look at the energy around a question or a situation, it can absolutely show you this is good for you, this is not good for you. Here's a better way of getting there. A
Mhm.
tarot reading isn't this fatalist thing where it's like this is definitely going to happen or this won't happen. It just shows the possibility, but it's still up for you. It's still up to you to decide how am I going to react now? What
Mm,
am I going to do from this point forward? How am I going to make this work?
mm.
One of the things I also like to compare tarot and astrology to is pants. And this is how I say it. Sometimes you get an astrology reading or a tarot reading, and it's maybe not what you want to hear. It's kind of like having an ill-fitting pair of pants.
Yeah.
And if you have an ill-fitting pair of pants, but let's say it's the only pants you have,
Mm.
because this is the only life you have, right? So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to sit there and bitch about it? No, instead, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. You're
Mhm.
going to make those pants work. Sometimes the cards, sometimes your astrology, it's all aligned. That's like having a great fitting pair of designer jeans. You
Mhm.
look good in it, you feel great, you can proceed, you can strut your stuff, everything's going to work out for you. But when things aren't working out in a reading or life or your astrology reading, if you get all the cards you don't like,
Mm.
all you got to remember, I like to think I'm the Tim Gunn of tarot. Make it work. You
Yeah.
can still make it work. You can take the worst situation. We can find a way. We can learn from it. We can grow from it. We can look for detours. We can make different choices.
Mm.
Make those pants work.
Make the pants work. I,
Make
I
the
usually
pants
make my
work.
I usually make mine work every day.
Right? You gotta. You gotta make it work. And that's how life is. You gotta make it work no matter what the hand is dealt.
Yeah.
And for making it work, sometimes for some people, it isn't quite that simple as just getting up and doing something different because of things like systemic racism, oppression, because sometimes people also don't have privilege. It can be a lot harder to move towards the life you want. Tarot and astrology can be tools, but you may still have to ask for help. You may still have to find other ways to move past those bigger issues.
Mm.
Tarot
So,
can't solve everything.
darn. Does astrology need to tie into tarot or like how does that apply?
It doesn't need to, but a lot of the tarot cards all have astrological attributes,
Mhm.
and knowing that can actually help you to deepen your interpretations of the cards. And if you have an astrology background, I mean, it's simpler. But if you don't have an astrology background, if it adds too much mumbo jumbo, then leave it alone. You don't need it.
Mhm.
It will add things, much as understanding other different types of symbols, but you don't need it.
Okay.
Up to you.
Hmm. So do you have any like specific rituals that you do after reading? I know that you sort of
Mhm.
described your reading process, but do you have things that you're consistently doing across the board?
Before I work with people, I have to get my office ready. And that means I've got to put some incense in the air. I've got to light my candles. I've got to also do all my little spiritual hygiene things with my balms and oils and sprays. And just so I'm in the mood, I have to make sure I've done my yoga, I've done my meditation, I'm prepared, I'm cleaned up, I've got lipstick on my beak, I'm ready to roll. So all of that stuff has to happen before I work.
Mm.
And after I'm done with the work day, every day when I was done reading, reading is very draining, by the way. People think it's glamorous and fun. Actually, for those of us who do it and have been in the trenches a long time, it's draining. It's really hard. So the first thing I have to shut my office down. I do a cleansing, and then I need to shut up. I need to shut up. I need to read a book. I need to cook dinner. I need to do things that ground me and bring me back to earth and out of that mindset.
Mm.
Because otherwise, what happens is you are walking around like wide open and you're carrying everybody's issues with you. And you don't want that. You want to let it all go. You want to forget about it. You want to ditch that energy and get back into your own body and your own life. Because that's the other thing, too, that people don't realize. When you are empathic, when you are intuitive, you have very leaky boundaries. That makes you very good at your work, but it also messes you up quite a bit. And a
Mhm.
lot of readers end up with issues because you take your clients' crap home with you.
Mm.
And so I would be like, now it's time to shut up. No talking, blow out the candles, do a cleansing, read a book, cook, sit down, shut up,
Mm.
forget about it. It always made the difference. Also, a good hot shower clears
Yeah.
energy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I believe it. I worked in a spa as an esthetician for like 5 years, and everyone would be like, "Your job's so beautiful." And I'm like, "Yeah, it
Mhm.
is." And they're like, "You must love working here." I'm like, "I'm exhausted all the time." And it was really because
Yes.
I'm physically touching people. And if they came in with the chip on their shoulder, it's like you could feel
Yep.
it, and it would bother me the entire 50 minutes I was with them. So
Yeah, and also you're sitting hunched over somebody.
yeah.
Same like people with tarot were hunched over a deck of cards. Let me
Mhm.
tell you something, as a yoga teacher, you want to get your back messed up, do some career where you're sitting hunched over, reading cards, doing a tattoo, cleaning someone's face. Let me
Mhm.
tell you, your body's going to feel it. I got into it recently with someone who said, well, that's not hard work, what you do. I'm like, bitch, you don't know what hard work this is. You haven't done it. It's very hard work physically because you're sitting, which I think chairs are the devil,
Mhm.
as a yoga teacher, and you're hunched over everything. You can't remember to sit up straight. It's
Mhm.
very exhausting physically and mentally. Totally.
Absolutely. So do you have any cards that resonate with you specifically?
My favorite card in the deck, first of all, is the sun,
Mm.
because the sun is joyful, it's optimistic, it's focused on the good things. There's that little kid in there having a good time. And that's how I want to live my life. I always want to be happy and joyful and free spirited,
Mhm.
happy go lucky, like a little kid. I get along really well with kids because I identify with that happy energy. However, my card is absolutely the Queen of Swords. The
Mm.
Queen of Swords is my card. It is me. The Queen of Swords leads with her truth. She pisses people off sometimes because of it. I'm actually quite logical, even though I'm intuitive. She's logical. She's always here to cut through the BS.
Mm.
And I would say that card I identify with very strongly. Always my life, there's always been the search for truth.
Mm.
And so I love the Queen of Swords. And she's a little misunderstood. People think, oh, she's kind of cold and harsh. I'm like, no, she's not. She's just doesn't got time for bullshit.
Yeah,
That's all.
that's awesome. I don't know if I ever had a favorite. I don't know. I mean, like, because really mine were the pictures. So I was always like probably one of the queens.
Yeah, of
I
course.
have this cat deck
Well,
that's really cute.
oh, I like anything with cats.
Yeah, it's really
Tarot decks with
cool.
cats are the best.
It's really cool. I'll have to send you pictures of it. You'll like it.
Yeah, my favorite deck of all time is the Baroque Bohemian Cats Tarot,
Mhm.
which is a bunch of cats in Victorian clothes. It's ridiculous. I love this deck. It makes me giggle like a little girl. I love working with it. No one touches it.
Ah, yeah,
No one
nobody touches
touches
my
it.
cat one, even though I don't know what I'm
No,
doing.
don't touch my Baroque Bohemian Cats Tarot. That's like touching Bart Simpson's Butterfinger. You are going to be in trouble if you touch that deck.
Wait, I was gonna, when you were talking about being hunched over, I was gonna tell you, I work with this lady, and she's been working with the company for like 500 years. And she's like the female Mr. Burns.
So with the hunch,
Yes, she's just Smithers. She's so like,
I got to tell you, sometimes when my husband drives, he's going into that position, and it makes me insane.
yeah,
It
I'm
makes
just
me
like trying to,
insane. It's like, sit up straight. Why are you doing that? And he gets so mad at me, but it's like, you are going to end up with such a terrible neck and back,
I
buddy.
know, bring back the corsets.
Yes, exactly.
So, what other projects are you working on right now?
So I have two books coming out next year. One is I'm doing it with an artist for Quarto. It's Learn to Paint Your Tarot Cards. She's
Mhm.
an amazing artist. And I also have Twist Your Fate, which is using tarot and astrology to manifest success in your life.
Hmm,
That's coming out next year, and a couple classes and stuff like that.
that's awesome. And then you also just came out with Tarot for Kids.
Yes, Tarot for Kids is a joint collaboration between me and an artist, Kaylee Whitman. And the deck is designed to be kid friendly, but it's also good for your inner child. It is a very sweet deck, and it still is true to the Rider-Waite-Smith, but we change it up a little bit to make it so it's accessible for children. It's a very inclusive deck. We made sure that every child could find themselves somewhere in that deck.
Awesome. I'm gonna buy one. I like kid stuff.
Oh my God, I love kids stuff.
I like kid stuff.
Well, listen, I've got so many little plastic toys. Oh my God. Benny, of course, is my favorite. I've got so many of these little plastic animals. I love little plastic animals. I've got buckets of these things.
We like
Because
crack up over Penny and hats, but it's like your laugh gets me every time.
it's so ridiculous, though. It's
So-
like, but you know, the funny thing is with these plastic animals, I was doing my 6-second tarot.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, and I thought, I better put something in here. I just don't want to put a card. And everyone's doing like flowers and all these beautiful things. And I have these little plastic animals. Instead, I'll put a couple little plastic animals. And people started asking about the animals. They're like, why are you using those animals? What's the significance? I'm like, it's what I have around here. It reminds us to be childlike. It's cute. It's fun.
Uh-huh.
And one time someone asked me, they said, well, what one's your favorite? And I'm like, oh, Benny the goat. And I was given this one. And the reason why I like this one, it was given to me as a gift. And there's a big joke behind it. And what the person didn't realize is it's anatomically correct. I don't know if you can see it. And huge. I mean, this goat has some nads. And when I discovered it, I'm like, did you see this? What you gave me here? This goat is like, I mean, it's like he's packing some heat. And so it just made me laugh. And goats make me laugh. I think goats are ridiculous.
They're so cute.
They're so ridiculous. So Benny, his name is Benny Margotis, and he is my absolute favorite of all the animals. So he started then joining me in my morning lives. After that one time when I told people, yeah, it's my favorite, people were like, well, I love the goat too. I said, all right, well, Benny will be hanging out too. So he just started hanging out with me. And I think sometimes more people show up for Benny the goat than they do for me.
I know you have such a huge following with the goat. And like people are doing like Lenny the goat. I saw.
Oh, there's Lenny, there's Nanny.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of goat stuff. And I'm working on Benny's Halloween costume.
Uh-huh.
I just picked up the final piece. Last year he was Ziggy Goat Dust.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to tell you what he is this year, but
Okay.
we've been planning. Benny's ready. Benny is ready for Halloween.
I love it. My friend Jessica and I used to do a goat face together in high school.
I love that.
You want to see it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, you might want to try it with me. But
That's
does it not look like a
awesome.
goat?
It does look like a goat. That's what they do. They have ridiculous faces. They're
so
ridiculous.
cute.
I mean, they just make you laugh, and we
They're-
need to laugh.
Like when they jump.
Yeah, so the little ones go straight up in the air,
Yeah.
like boing.
So do you have any words of encouragement for anyone interested in learning tarot?
Yes, you are intuitive. You just forgot, and working with tarot will help you to tune into that. And you can learn tarot. When you learn tarot, you're going to realize that you knew all along all the answers. It's all there with you.
That was so beautiful. Again, you're such a wordsmith. I love listening to you.
Oh, thank you. You're so
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, I'm sincerely like, it's just, I feel so positive and uplifted.
Well, life is meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
It is meant to be enjoyed. I was just talking to my son the other day, and we went down to the little local taco truck, and they were handing out free hot Mexican chocolate.
Mm.
And so I grabbed my cup, and he grabbed his. He goes, "Oh, I'm on this diet, and I shouldn't be drinking this." I'm like, dude, you're going to live your life one day, and you're going to think, I wish I would have had that Mexican hot chocolate. Just have the goddamn hot chocolate, drink it.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about life so much. You know you're going to love it. Just enjoy it. Drink the hot chocolate.
Right. So where can our friends find you?
They can find me at thetarotlady.com. That is my hub where everything happens. That's where I have my blog, my forecast, my podcasts are all on there. They can join Patreon. Patreon is where I do all my teaching. That is where people get access to my political astrology, my extended card of the day interpretations with astrology, tidbits. They get sneak peeks and all of that good stuff. And I'm also on Instagram at The Tarot Lady, and on Twitter, which is my favorite social media platform, at The Tarot Lady.
And we don't like Facebook. No offense, Facebook.
I don't like Facebook.
I don't either.
I really don't go on there at all. If you're
Doesn't
looking to have
look fun.
access with me, Facebook is not the place.
Yeah. It's
I
not
don't even I just go post like a card for the day, and I'm like, get me out of here. Ew, too
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah. So would you mind sending us off with a quick collective reading?
Yes, I will pull one from the Tarot for Kids deck. So I have to shuffle it first
Mm-hmm.
because we gotta always put a little energy into the cards. So just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do we need to know for the collective? I'm putting the deck face down. I mean, you can't see it from here, just so you know what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And cutting it into 3 piles, putting it back together. And I'm gonna just take the card off the top of the deck.
Mhm.
And look at what we got. We got that 9 of Wands. That's what Capricorn got this morning.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh no.
Yeah, but you know what that's telling us for the collective? We all have to work on our boundaries a little bit.
Mm.
We have to work at really standing up for ourselves, standing up for what's right, keeping the negativity out of our lives so we can have that positive, joyful life. If you are constantly allowing people to step all over you, if you're allowing people to contaminate and pollute your vibe with their negative energy, you're not going to be living your best life. You're going to be living a life that really feels scared and fear filled and negative. So this card says, let's work on our boundaries so we can all have that joyful, secure life that we deserve.
Hmm.
Boundaries are important. Boundaries are very, very important. This card always reminds me, look, if you put those boundaries up, you're probably going to avoid a lot of problems in your life.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 100%. Boundaries are majorly important.
They are, and they're so hard for us to learn because we're taught to be nice.
I
And we think
know.
we're being mean if we're putting boundaries, but you're not being mean. You're being good to yourself. You're being
Mm,
healthy. And when you show people that you respect yourself, that's good for them too.
absolutely. I wish I had like known about the importance of them at a younger age, but you live, you learn, right?
Hey, I'm still learning that lesson. It's a
Yeah,
hard lesson.
it
It's
is.
very hard. Mhm.
Well, Teresa, thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot that I really didn't know about tarot before, and I'm actually more excited to look at my decks now. And I'm going to send you pictures of the cat deck.
Yay.
And I just am so appreciative of you and everything that you do for not just me, but everyone who gets to enjoy you.
Well, Kate, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to join you on Puff Puff Pass the Podcast, which is one of the best names I've ever heard for a podcast. Of course, I had to say yes to that. So
Thank
thank you for having me.
thank you